Hi, I'm Isabelle Lambert.
And I'm Eugenia Oganova.
We are a company called Energy Pulse.
And right now we're going to be talking about why fat is a problem in our culture and what fat energy represents and what consciousness there is in fat.
And the reason why we want to talk about fat, why it's such a big issue, is it creates so much emotional pain in a person if they have too much fat on their bodies. We want to mostly talk about the fat issue of too much instead of too little, because that's the predominant epidemic now that's happening in our country, the epidemic of obesity. The reason why a human being would become fat-oriented, and I use that instead of obese because I think we need to take some of the punishing and some of the negative energy off of the concept of obesity. So the reason why a person becomes fat-oriented is because they don't know how to take enough pleasure into their body, especially through the second chakra. The second chakra is the chakra of pleasure. And it's not just pleasure, specialized things like you like to do to have a good time, like go to the movies or eat certain foods or, have conversations that make you feel like you're in pleasure. It's the kind of pleasure we're talking about is the pleasure of just being alive.
Yeah. So there are reasons why we gain weight that are not a healthy reasons, and we're going to look at the emotional reasons first. One of the most common reasons is that we feel scared. We feel scared in our life, and then we try to eat for comfort. In other words, we're not eating because our body requires that food. We're eating because our emotional body is scared and trying to compensate by trying to get comfortable through certain types of foods, especially carbohydrates and a lot of sugar, that supports that comfort feeling. Another reason, that is a pretty common one, is stabilization. When we don't feel stable in our life, we kind of feel wobbly, we feel like circumstances happen and they move us one way or another and we get lost. We want to stabilize, and if we don't know how to do that internally, we tend to take some sort of a food, put it in our body that grounds us, and then we feel more stable. That is also not a healthy reason, and both of those, the feeling scared and wanting comfort and feeling a lack of stability and then trying to anchor through food, connected to the root chakra. So if we're not present in our root chakra energy, we end up eating unhealthily or the wrong amount of food in order to feel emotionally better. Another very common reason is wanting to be hidden. When we don't feel like it's okay to show ourselves, to show up in life, we hide and we protect ourselves. Layers and layers of protection that builds more and more fat cells in our body.
Another component is connected to the speed of life. So much energy in modern society is super fast. When we feel threatened or overwhelmed by the speed of modern life, or just sometimes the speed of our own thoughts or the demands that we place on ourselves, we end up overeating and wanting fat to stay in our body because fat compresses speed, so it makes us feel like everything is going into slow motion when actually it's just a form of avoidance. And the last thing we want to mention is rebellion. We have a basic nutritional understanding, most human beings do, of what is needed by the body, but we go into rebellion. We don't care what the body needs because we want to give ourselves pleasure, so we overeat as a form of rebellion, and this puts enormous pressure on the body and also on our sense of self-dignity.
Yeah, and another reason how we gain weight unhealthily, mental reasons like trying to match an image. That connects to social pressure. Like, let's say if you grew up in a family where everybody were overweight, and let's say they projected onto you this emotional flow that said that, well, who are you? You're not better than us. You got to be like us. Or maybe you simply wanted to fit in. Chances are that your body gets imprinted with that template and wanting to gain more fat cells, right? Or the other imagery that is really popular nowadays of being so thin as practically being size 0, that if it's healthy for the body, that's very, very rare. There are very few people that are naturally that way for whom it is healthy. For most human beings, it is not healthy. So when we try to match that image, we use our mental energy to override what body needs, and that does not work either.
We also want to mention, for thoroughness, the physical aspect, even though it's pretty obvious that if we take in too many calories, if we don't move the body around enough, and also if we eat the wrong foods for the body, those all contribute to the physical reasons for gaining weight. And the body has its optimum caloric intake. If we reduce the amount of calories that, we reduce the amount of calories that we want, for sure, into the amount of calories that the body actually needs, there's a really interesting phenomenon. It's called caloric restriction. It actually helps us age well. In other words, if we consciously restrict the number of calories that we take in, our body revs up as if we gave it a tune-up, and it starts to be able to age less and repair any kind of physical damage that already exists in the body.
And that is not done through overriding with will or deciding and then restricting our calories by will. It's done through balancing those two components we were mentioning earlier. For example, the emotional one, we were saying about the root chakra issues. So if we're stable and if we're present in our life, then we would not need to overeat emotionally. Another thing is if we show up to life, if we're not afraid to be in whatever circumstances that are occurring, then again we end up helping our system, it's actually the third chakra energy, to not be hidden. So that brings all sorts of stabilization and exposure to our life that again does not help us gain weight that's not healthy.
And one of the mental reasons to recondition ourselves around so as not to gain weight is to know our uniqueness. Obviously, we see everyone around us and we compare, but if we stop the comparison as a negative comparison and as a self-diminishment, and we go into our sense of positive uniqueness no matter what our body looks like, then we use the mental power of uniqueness to overcome death by comparison.
Yeah, and if we receive pleasure and if we're able to go with the speed of life, death by comparison does not occur.
And we want to mention too that there's a positive function for the physical body to have fat cells in it and on it, for the brain to work, for hormones to be produced, for digestion to occur. All of this, for cushioning of the organs, all of these physiological functions are dependent on a certain amount of fat cells. And if we have a negative attitude toward fat in general, then we end up putting the negative vibration into the body parts' internal fat cells and killing them off. They can't function as well because they end up feeling our negativity towards all kinds of fat cells in the body.
Yep. So if you'd like this information, more on the subject or others, please visit our website, which is www.energypulsesource.com. And on that website you can download some workshops that material recorded previously, so you can practice at home. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.